Today we're going to use this time to talk to everyone about the relationship between autism or depression and Mahayana Buddhism, or how Mahayana Buddhism can treat some of the psychological disorders that are quite common among people nowadays. Before we just get into that, I'd also like to take a moment to specifically mention to everyone here that roughly between the hours of 7:40 p.m. and 8:40 p.m., there will be a particular period of time that is important to note. I'll use Chinese to briefly share with you some thoughts and perspectives on this topic. Then, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I will speak entirely in Tibetan to talk about how we can actually, in fact, truly educate and nurture our future generations, our descendants, and those who will follow. But this part will be in pure Tibetan, which many of you probably won't understand. I just asked some people in the audience, and they said that they truly and genuinely wanted to listen. But as for those individuals who are around me here today, not a single person might truly understand a single word. So during that one particular hour, it's possible that no one would grasp anything. If you can't understand a single word and just endure it, won't it be quite painful? However, if you genuinely wish to listen and pay attention, that is perfectly fine as well. In that particular case, if we are unable to complete everything within the designated hour, if we don't finish the talk, I can recite a lineage transmission from the words of my perfect teacher, Dzogchen Preliminary Practices, in our next class. So in this particular way, even though some of you might not fully understand, you will still certainly receive and truly benefit from it. The transmission of the path to liberation, that should be worthwhile, right? Even if it's just for an hour. Otherwise, if you really don't understand anything at all, then and still sit here for an hour, perhaps feeling like a significant and unproductive waste of valuable time. So today I'd like to delve a bit deeper into the complexities surrounding conditions such as autism or clinical depression, exploring their various facets and impacts. I am profoundly concerned and genuinely care a great deal about these significant and pressing issues. The fundamental reason I care so deeply and passionately is that in the not-so-distant past, because of these specific and often debilitating kinds of illnesses, perhaps on a truly global scale, these issues did not break out with such serious and widespread consequences. Back then, a very long time ago, in those earlier periods, when I was studying the Bodhicitta, there is a line in the Bodhicitta that says, "Alas, deluded and obsessed fools fill the world." Indeed, there is such a line that exists. It truly means how utterly pitiful, how profoundly sad, that those individuals who are completely intoxicated and deeply deluded by their own selves, these truly misguided madmen, have actually filled the entire world completely and utterly. All the people in the world are like complete lunatics, not truly knowing their proper direction, utterly lost, and extremely pitiable. When I was explaining this profound verse, although this particular event was probably more than 2,000 years ago, it is still relevant today. It was something that Bodhisattva Shantideva said at that time. But if we look at it, I'm afraid this statement doesn't seem reasonable. Because nowadays, among the vast majority of people in the entire world, except for a very small number who are truly mentally ill, everyone else is quite normal and ordinary. But now, sometimes, whether I am in China or traveling abroad, when I encounter and observe a significant number of news reports and media coverage, and come into contact with many people from both the East and the West, indeed, among such an incredibly vast and diverse population, on the surface, it genuinely appears that everyone seems relatively content and quite happy, seemingly living a perfectly normal and ordinary life. But in reality, when you truly interact with them, more or less, virtually everyone carries some kind of underlying psychological issue. Some are quite obvious and severe, directly affecting their daily lives outwardly. Some are very mild and subtle, and perhaps only the person themselves is aware of it, while others may not notice. For some individuals, it hasn't become fully apparent yet, and it just exists as a kind of potential, deeply hidden form. In this particular situation, I sometimes find myself thinking of this profound saying from the revered Bodhisattva Shantideva. Indeed, even in this current era, there may very well be a profound way to interpret this. So today I want to talk a little bit more about this particular subject. Just a couple of days ago, I specifically mentioned the intriguing connection between autism and the principles of Mahayana Buddhism. Some people might actually think that autism isn't all that serious, right? It's only a very small number of parents or children who are truly affected by it and who genuinely care about it. Some people have also told me, if you were to talk about this particular topic online, it's quite possible that virtually no one would truly listen. Except for a very few parents of autistic children, maybe no one will listen. because when it comes to autism, many people aren't really concerned about it at all. But I said, I'm not worried about this. Why is that exactly? It's true that autism, a complex developmental condition, especially in many Western countries, this phenomenon is currently spreading at an extremely rapid and alarming pace. According to a highly credible and official source, specifically from within the United States government in the Western world, based on information provided by an official source from the United States, this trend is becoming increasingly prevalent. In 1970, the United States conducted a survey, and during that comprehensive survey, 1 out of every 14,000 children was indeed found to have autism. Generally, as everyone knows about autism, it typically manifests during early childhood and then starts to become quite noticeably apparent to others. But last year, in 2014, when they conducted another official and comprehensive survey, they found that a significant number, specifically 1 out of every 68 children, had autism. It's important to note that some cases are quite mild and some are more hidden or less immediately apparent. Especially in some of the many highly developed countries, for example in South Korea, it is found that 1 out of every 38 children is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And specifically in the United States, currently, the majority of cases are typically discovered and observed among boys. Out of every precisely 68 documented cases, a significant 42 individuals are identified as male. Consequently, from a profound economic and societal perspective, both the United States and the United Kingdom are currently expressing considerable and growing concern, particularly as the overall number of diagnosed autism cases continues its steady and noticeable rise in the foreseeable future. It will directly impact their daily lives. So now, presently, in the United States, about $200 million each and every year annually are being allocated to various significant autism-related efforts in order to provide essential care and support. And reportedly, the United Kingdom as well, between £5 and £6.5 million sterling, to help these children with autism with various important aspects of their daily lives. Because they pay very close attention to the treatment and overall well-being of people with disabilities or those with mental health conditions and are quite concerned about their welfare. Some economists also believe that, and other important considerations, children with autism, on the one hand, we need to help them right now. But in the future, if we are able to make use of their abilities, it could actually reduce a lot of economic and social pressure overall. The burden would be much less. In their research, they found that among children with autism, there is a specific type called high-functioning autism. Some individuals have low-functioning autism, and those with certain low-functioning autism basically are completely unable to effectively communicate with other people in the world around them. Although they have language, they are unwilling to communicate. Even though they have vision, they don't want to make eye contact with others. Although they have hearing, they can't accept certain positive information or constructive feedback. They always keep themselves in a closed-off defensive state, refusing external input. These are considered very low-functioning cases. They even struggle with their own daily life, finding it especially difficult to walk, stand, sit, or lie down. Parents of such children are particularly worried. Once they are gone, it seems that this child will be left completely alone in this world with no one to rely on. So for the parents, I have also met some parents of children with this kind of autism before. They said, well, while we are still alive, we already feel the pain of hell because we are extremely worried that in the future, our children will also be abandoned by society. If left entirely on their own, these vulnerable children might tragically starve or even freeze to death due to harsh conditions. There is also a distinct and remarkable group of high-functioning autistic children. What are they truly like? You could certainly say that some of these particular children possess an exceptionally strong and often highly detailed memory. They also have a very strong ability to imitate, and their entire daily routine is very well organized and maintained. Whether it's their toys or the things they do regularly, there is always a certain pattern to it. If anyone disrupts this pattern, then they will face consequences. They can become extremely upset, even furious, and may do some very extreme and dangerous things. However, if we make positive and constructive use of some of their inherent abilities, we might find a more beneficial and advantageous outcome. The international community now believes that these children, if educated and trained, can be ideally suited to efficiently managing certain extensive information databases or effectively overseeing, for example, comprehensive libraries or other relatively structured and well-defined jobs, all of which they can also competently handle. In this way, we can effectively and fully utilize the resources of their brains. As a result, the economic pressure on society will also be greatly reduced. That is why there is so much international attention on this issue. There is a great deal of concern internationally about the current situation of children with autism, including their education and the causes of their condition. Of course, when it comes to the causes, why were there so few cases in the United States in the 1970s, and why are there so many now? Some experts firmly believe that it is indeed very highly likely to occur, that the testing equipment that we used in the past was not as advanced as it is now, and perhaps back in the 1970s, there weren't as many sensitive instruments to detect these cases. Some individuals genuinely believe that the current dietary habits of both parents and their children are also a significant contributing factor. There are, for instance, many genetically modified foods, various pesticides or highly processed foods, and so on, which are consumed regularly. Air quality and certain dietary factors, among others, may also contribute to this. There are analyses from this perspective as well. Of course, from a Buddhist point of view, it may also be profoundly related to karmic effects stemming from previous lives, as well as certain attachments and so on in this present life. It can also be explained in this way. In any case, I haven't specifically looked into this particular issue before, and I honestly don't know much about the current situation of children with autism in China or other countries around the world, what their current circumstances are like. But in fact, if we look at some situations, we can observe that they might actually be quite similar. Many children and families nowadays are extremely stubborn and selfish, including being unwilling to interact with their parents or with others. They are especially likely to just hold onto a computer or a phone device by themselves, and apart from that, they often do not want to interact with anyone else. They possess a particular and profound sense of loneliness, just like that. Autism is also commonly called loneliness disorder. Some people affectionately call them children of the stars, saying that each individual star in the vast sky has its own unique world. Apart from that, it is impossible for one star to merge with another. So, when it comes to children with autism, their characteristic is that they only want their own world. Other than that, some are even very averse to their parents. So, in this kind of situation, when we are educating children, if we happen to notice this kind of situation, we genuinely need to consider and determine the most effective and appropriate methods for educating them, specifically to help them learn how to truly relax and find a sense of calm. At the very beginning of this process, we may have some effective ways to provide assistance. But after a certain point, especially for some children with intellectual disabilities, it really does become quite difficult. Once we discover this, I think that, as Mahayana Buddhists, we should endeavor to help in every possible way we can. For example, if their parents really pass away, when Buddhists see this situation, we should find ways to help. There are some Buddhist organizations or groups of Buddhists who can come together. We can pool our strength together and work as one, and do something truly meaningful and impactful for the broader society. This critically includes some children nowadays who are also actively participating and learning within specialized educational environments, specifically in schools designed for people with various disabilities. In these particular and important cases as well, Mahayana Buddhists should also show deep concern and understanding. This is indeed the very first thing that I truly wanted to clearly say. The second important thing I really want to talk about today is clinical depression. So-called depression is indeed quite serious and widespread worldwide today. In fact, it is actually a very serious kind of mental illness. Some people, truly think that having clinical depression is something very truly frightening indeed. They don't even just dare to tell others about it at all. And others might think, oh, he has indeed experienced depression. If he has truly had a period of depression, then that is a significant factor. They assume, oh, this person must have mental problems. They are quite cautious when interacting with him, or indeed, I've seen that if you've experienced depression in the past, once you've fully recovered from it, it truly has no significant impact on your life at all moving forward. After recovery, it doesn't have any negative effects. However, other people in society, when they hear that someone has had depression, from then on, they become very worried about this person, wondering if he might go crazy, or if being in direct physical contact with him might somehow be highly contagious to themselves, and so on. First and foremost, it is absolutely and completely not contagious at all. Everyone should be clear about this. From its symptoms and causes, and the overall condition of the illness, there is no such thing. Second, it is simply and fundamentally a psychological illness, a mental condition. But this kind of psychological illness can happen to anyone. Even practitioners like us can experience it. And some famous people in the world, especially celebrities who are particularly thoughtful, for example, among painters, many famous and influential painters have suffered from it. Some prominent people in politics have also experienced it firsthand. And other religious practitioners, including many prominent religious figures in the Western world, there are also many devout people among religious figures. Actually, it's just like catching a common cold in the world. When you catch a cold, it's very uncomfortable when it flares up. You feel truly terrible. It's quite intense. And you may have already taken some cold medicine, but once you fully recover, it's truly nothing at all. So in the foreseeable future, in the various social groups and communities around us, if someone unfortunately suffers from the debilitating condition of depression, it's really not that scary. Society does not really need to worry about this particular issue at all. I, as well as both Westerners and Easterners, have encountered many cases. For example, during the period when you had depression before, it was especially hard to bear. And then the person themselves also truly feels that once it's completely over, it is absolutely nothing. But this is quite similar to what we commonly refer to as heart disease. For example, back in the 1980s, starting from my second year after coming to the institute, my heart was in particularly bad condition. And then some monastics I was quite familiar with. When I was very often with them, I would always talk to them. Besides that, even with some of the best Khenpos, I really didn't want to talk to them at all. It was truly like that. During that difficult period, I absolutely couldn't sleep at night. And during the course of the day, it truly felt like, for no apparent reason, sometimes I was especially angry. And at other times, it felt like life had no meaning or purpose whatsoever. This is a very common characteristic of clinical depression. Its main distinguishing feature is that the person typically feels in this world, there is truly no inherent meaning or purpose to living. Even the most insignificant and smallest things, people tend to dramatically exaggerate them a great deal, making them seem far more important than they actually are. For example, if someone says you're unattractive, then you think, if I'm unattractive, then everyone in the world must also think I'm unattractive. It's just especially like that. In the past, I thought that many women might have a significantly higher incidence of clinical depression, primarily because their moods tend to change much more quickly and dramatically. So in the Institute, when handling various things, I often get especially worried, particularly when there are several women present in the immediate vicinity. If there are 4, I can't focus on just one, otherwise the others will be unhappy. So I look at this person first, then that one. And finally, after looking at the 4th one, I then give everyone a general, somewhat vague glance. This way, maybe everyone will feel okay. But now it seems that men are like this too. For a period of time, when I was handling issues with the men, because sometimes men can also be really very sensitive. They'd say, Khenpo, 2 or even 3 years ago, you said something quite significant to me, and I still remember it. At that time, in front of others, you only looked at them and not at me. So some men are actually even more fragile than women. See, when I say about men, the women are always very happy. It's really and truly accurate. So now I actually feel that this profound depression, I think it's just like having a heart problem, like heart disease, or like catching a cold. But this kind of illness, if not properly treated, can also be very dangerous, potentially leading to severe complications. Now, when some international statistics are compiled, especially in developed countries like those in Europe and America, the current situation is indeed extremely severe. Basically, when I recently went to the UK the other day, I specifically asked a lot of people at that time, including several professors from Cambridge, Oxford, and London in the UK. When I had the opportunity to speak with them and ask about this issue, each and every one of them told me that right now, depression is a very serious issue among us. At that time, they said it was about 1 in 6 people. 1 out of every 6 people suffers from depression. This is the case throughout the entire UK as well. And the same goes for the Netherlands and Germany, among others as well. It's also very much like this in the United States, When it comes to China, it might also be very easy to gather such statistics and data. Many people have these kinds of psychological disorders. Actually, it's not something that is terribly frightening. But we need to recognize what kind of illness it is. In reality, when someone suffers from it, it's extremely painful, and they have strong suicidal thoughts. Its main characteristic is suicidal ideation. Take Van Gogh, for example. He just couldn't take it anymore in the end. He was such a famous and truly renowned painter, and now each of his paintings is worth well over 80 million US dollars today. A person like that, who was originally an extremely talented individual, but in the very end, he just simply couldn't bear it anymore. He was in tremendous psychological pain. Later, he tragically cut off his own ear and eventually, in a desperate act, shot himself. He died at the young age of 37. I've thoroughly read his complete biography. His biography really shows that when suffering from this kind of illness, it's extremely hard to endure. It's very, very painful. In the end, there was just no way out. So this might be a kind of symptom. Many of us might have this kind of symptom or condition. It could be considered a kind of heart disease, really, but the way heart disease manifests in this particular way is very frightening indeed. When this particular kind of illness is deeply inside your very own mind, it precisely depends on how you learn to release. We may still need to further understand it now, delving deeper into its complexities. So, how exactly do we go about thoroughly understanding it? We need to explore the real and fundamental characteristics of depression, as well as some other significant features, as I just mentioned. One is magnifying your own perceived mistakes. You start to feel like, nobody truly loves me now, and that can be a very difficult feeling to overcome. Nobody likes me, everyone in the world. For example, if one person scolds them, or two people scold them, if three people scold them, they absolutely think that everyone in the world can't stand them. They feel like living in this world. There's no meaning anymore. It's very hopeless. Nowadays, a lot of people really do feel this way. Originally, it was just a very small thing. And in terms of your life, it wouldn't affect anything at all. But when this significant thing actually happens, you truly feel like, wow, it's such an incredibly huge deal. I distinctly heard someone say just the other day that his boss specifically talked about him and his colleague also talked about him. But actually, it was just two people talking about him. When two people said something about him, he felt like there was no meaning in this world anymore. He started thinking about suicide again, or wanting to go somewhere where no one could ever find him at all, to another world entirely. A colleague said a couple of things about him, and his boss also did too, indeed. And maybe sometimes this boss would also say something. Sometimes even his own family members would make comments about him. When even his own child spoke up and said something, he truly felt like, wow, there's not a single person in the world who loves me. So what's the point of living in this world? But actually, that's not really the case. If your heart is just a little more tolerant and relaxed, even if the kids at home don't care about me, even if my family doesn't care about me, even if my boss and colleagues truly don't care about me, then I can just go and live in a cave. I can go somewhere else. If I really want to live my own very free life, I should absolutely be able to. But at that particular time, he simply couldn't manage to do it. He consistently kept restricting his own heart more and more, gradually limiting his true feelings. After binding himself in such a profound and inescapable manner in the end, it truly becomes something profoundly terrifying at that particular point in time. For instance, in the historical context of early America, I distinctly recall reading in Abraham Lincoln's comprehensive autobiography. This is how he vividly described his experience with depression. He frequently used a black dog as a powerful metaphor. He famously said, "When I am working, this black dog often bites me, causing considerable distress. When it bites me, and I see that things are getting quite serious, I will immediately go to the hospital for medical treatment, because according to what I read in his biography and understood, he spent his whole life fighting this difficult condition, and it was extremely distressing and painful for him." So, when we talk about depression, I think that nowadays people in the world sometimes, whether they are practitioners or not, including some of us fellow practitioners here today, also experience some mental discomfort. Actually, mental health is very important. If your mind is strong, then whether it's a challenging physical illness or some significant troubles that arise in life, or the immense pressures stemming from society or within your family, you can effectively handle them. You can steadfastly persevere. But if our minds unfortunately become fragile, then we absolutely can't withstand anything at all from the outside world, and there's simply no way to adequately support ourselves. No matter what you currently possess, it ultimately won't work out. And therefore, the power of the mind is very important. But this mental strength, as I have just mentioned, it may be closely related to what we now commonly refer to as clinical depression, to a certain significant and considerable extent. So in this situation, Mahayana Buddhism actually possesses some profound and effective methods as well. So what exactly are these particular methods that are employed? Mahayana Buddhism has a kind of, you could say, because when people develop these significant mental illnesses, The very first and most crucial thing that is affected is their fundamental sense of self, a very strong sense of selfishness and self-interest. If I don't get recognition from others, if others don't like me, it might hurt my self-esteem, damage my character, or indeed truly insult my personal dignity. Some time ago, a person contacted me and was audibly crying on the phone for the entire duration of our conversation. She expressed that her teacher was consistently treating her in a very unkind and unfair manner. I don't remember the details. I asked, "How exactly was your teacher bad to you?" She said a lot of things, but I didn't really catch everything clearly or fully comprehend it. Later, she explained that her teacher had criticized her quite harshly, even though she was in fact a genuinely good person. But because her teacher had deeply insulted her dignity and self-worth and didn't completely trust her at all, later I said to her on the phone, "Actually, this is a good thing. There's really absolutely nothing at all to be insulted about." What exactly did she actually even say? Maybe I'm not explaining this very clearly today, but what I mean is, nowadays, many people think that if I do something exceptionally well and others unfairly criticize me, or if others deliberately trample on or insult my personal dignity, in a certain fundamental sense, we inherently know that deliberately insulting someone's inherent dignity is profoundly unreasonable. However, from the profound and expansive perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, and specifically within the deeply contemplative context of meditating on universal compassion and boundless loving kindness, actually, when sentient beings treat me badly, this is truly the most effective and optimal way to practice. When others intentionally insult my personal dignity, regardless of whether it's your dearest family members or your beloved boyfriend or girlfriend, or your boss, your colleagues, or your classmates, no matter who it is, if they truly insult you and are genuinely trying to cause you harm, you can take a moment to observe. What exactly is my current state of mind right now? At this very moment, to be completely honest with you, our inherent selfishness is indeed far too strong. We think we are the best in the world, that we are great, that we are remarkable, that I am in fact a pretty good and genuinely decent person, that my character is perfect. If you truly have this kind of mindset, then when others say even a little about you, you just can't possibly take it. You feel profoundly hurt and utterly miserable. But if in fact you don't set yourself on such an incredibly high pedestal, a position of elevated self-importance, and see yourself as an ordinary person with karma, afflictions, and obstacles, with many noticeable and significant faults on your part, then when others talk about me, when others point out my shortcomings and very apparent faults, it is also completely reasonable. If we truly possess this kind of mindset, then no matter what others may say or utter, even if they deeply insult your character, you won't care about it in the slightest. So I genuinely believe that at this very moment in time, a significant number of us possess rather delicate and easily affected hearts. As for the reason why our hearts have become so incredibly fragile and susceptible to emotional distress, one is that, as ordinary people, our ability to withstand things is relatively weak. This is a very common and widespread trait. Another significant reason may be closely related to some of today's pervasive media, including television and movies. This certainly has a considerable influence. The education we have received since early childhood, and at the same time when we watch movies and television programs, we often encounter various perspectives. Movies and TV shows are generally like this. When someone says something, the other person immediately has to react. For example, if I were to say something truly insulting to you, then the other person will instantly have a reaction. And very, very quickly, their facial expression will change in just the first moment at this time. And we have all grown up in this kind of worldview and value system. As we grow up, when we finally become adults, we end up becoming actors in a movie, actors in the drama of life. When others say something about me, I feel I must respond to them. Whatever others say about me, I find it hard to believe. Our whole society has already become a kind of stage that is quick to react, As a result, even a single sentence or comment can make us extremely sensitive and alert. Because of this, it's as if in our very own eyes, we clearly and distinctly perceive it. Even the tiniest speck of dust gets in. We can't stand it and our eyes fill with tears. In the same way, in our lives, if there's even a little bit of provocation, we just can't handle it at all, The reason for this is that our selfishness is really too strong. But the Mahayana Buddhist view of compassion actually doesn't focus much on the self. Basically, as long as one can survive, that's enough. However, the vast majority of my energy, focus, and dedicated attention are primarily concentrated on the crucial task of actively assisting and supporting others at this moment For example, when I'm truly working for the benefit of sentient beings, if someone maliciously slanders you publicly online, when you're slandered, you might think, if I have faults, I should take responsibility for them. If others point out my faults, I should accept it well. It's good for someone to supervise and point out my shortcomings. If I don't have this fault, I am very pure and utterly spotless, completely free from any blemish. So what others say about me actually doesn't really matter. What others say about me isn't really important. What's important is that I help others. So perhaps I might not even pay any real attention to it at all. Similarly, if a person is very selfish and another person really wants to help others, when this person who wants to help others is insulted by others, he really won't take it to heart at all in any way. But when sentient beings are insulted, he cares a lot. When he himself is insulted, he doesn't care. But for someone whose compassion and bodhicitta are not well cultivated, even if someone says just a little bit, perhaps a small amount, even a tiny, seemingly insignificant remark or casual comment, and attacks you, you immediately can't take it anymore. You start to turn against them, actively seeking revenge, and feeling an especially profound sense of hurt and betrayal. So, my initial suggestion is, what exactly should we strive to cultivate within ourselves in this situation? We should cultivate compassion and bodhicitta. If we don't even have compassion? As for compassion and bodhicitta, it may play a very important role in strengthening our minds. It has a very important function indeed, because many of our psychological issues, whether it's depression or autism, are all really due to an excessive attachment to the self itself. We're wound up way too tightly, and as a result, if we originally didn't take ourselves so seriously, if we weren't so concerned about ourselves, then when others criticize you, insult you, or even hit you, you'd think, this temporary self doesn't really matter. As long as sentient beings benefit, that's fine. It's as if your mind becomes extremely, extremely relaxed. In life, we often think, people are treating me badly, they're not good to me. But if we possess a strong sense of compassion and bodhicitta, then we realize that being treated badly is only natural. Given how flawed I am, what good can come from this heap of karma and afflictions? If you think in this particular way, your suffering may naturally decrease a great deal. This is just one effective method among others. Another method is the wisdom of no self, Among all the various qualities in our minds, the wisdom of no self is really the strongest and most powerful. Because we know that all of this suffering comes from our attachment to the inherent existence of material things. Once we truly realize some of the emptiness of no self, once we really understand this profound wisdom and teaching deeply at that very point, we can confidently say that we won't be so fragile anymore. From another perspective, there's a particular term that's quite popular nowadays, and it's gaining significant traction. It's called a glass heart. You see, glass, if it's not tempered glass, it is quite fragile. The other kind of glass, if you just touch it a little, it shatters completely immediately. It's gone right away. Now, the hearts of many young people are also glass hearts. Just a little comment. So nowadays, many people are especially cautious when they speak. Some people simply avoid interacting with others. I don't dare to interact with people, otherwise I might be a bad person. I might say anything comes to mind. As soon as I speak, I inevitably end up offending countless people, so I simply choose not to speak at all. In our academy, there are some people who have the big sign with the words, "No talking," hanging around their necks. Some genuinely want to keep silent and focus on their practice, while others just can't seem to control themselves, afraid of offending others. So this kind of silence is also a way of restraining themselves. There are people like this. Actually, of course, if you are in retreat and keeping silent, that's also acceptable. But the most important thing is our mind. It shouldn't be so easily shattered or broken, What should we turn it into then? A strong Vajra mind of wisdom that truly realizes emptiness. This kind of Vajra mind, if we carefully examine the detailed biographies of truly great masters throughout the annals of history, it becomes profoundly evident that no matter what harsh insults, malicious slander, or severe ascetic hardships they relentlessly faced, for them, every single disaster and every profound suffering was ultimately transformed. It was transformed into another profound kind of wisdom and understanding. In every aspect of their lives, everything that happened was a good thing. For example, if they got sick, they would think, wow, this illness is actually very good for me. I can use it to take on the suffering of sentient beings. When others had completely abandoned them, they would genuinely say, wow, that's truly great. Now I have absolute freedom without being constrained or limited by anyone else. They would never be utterly defeated or fall into deep despair because of this challenging situation, nor would they ever choose suicide. They would never do that. So this approach should truly be the most thorough and comprehensive. I once read about a very famous Western national leader. He was a prominent and influential president. When he suffered from a severe bout of depression and genuinely couldn't cope with the immense pressures, in the end, he, despite being the president himself, faced significant personal challenges. Would often see some words of praise about himself in the newspapers. There would be some words praising him. He would cut them out. Then, whenever his depression became very severe, he would take them out and read them himself. Ah, so this is precisely the kind of person I am. I'm not the worst person, he would tell himself. And after he finished reading, he would feel a little bit more relaxed and at ease. Actually, I truly think for such a truly great and influential leader, to have to use such a superficial, almost trivial thing to comfort himself is also quite pitiable. But truly indeed, in this very world, it is so. On the surface, it truly appears that we all seem to be very successful and accomplished individuals. But inside, each person has more or less some troubles, and some things that do not always go their way as they might have originally hoped or anticipated. In this particular and challenging situation, I truly and sincerely hope that some of us, if we study the profound and intricate Dharma, if we have an opportunity to study the root stanzas of the Middle Way. Recently, I've been studying the commentary on the root stanzas of the Middle Way, the clear words, and I feel, wow, there are such wonderful treatises in the world. Will I have time in the future to teach them, if I can teach them? Of course, when a person finally faces the separation of the four elements of the body, maybe no one can do anything about it. Some people die when they're young. Some people die when they're old. But aside from that, generally, if we understand the emptiness of the Middle Way, if we truly possess the wisdom of the Middle Way's emptiness, then some of the simple afflictions in the world, some simple attacks from others, shouldn't shatter us or turn us into glass hearts. We should actually become much stronger and stronger over time instead. In this regard, within our current study group, within the Institute, there are indeed some people like this. In the past, whether it was in relationships or in life, it seemed that encountering even a small problem, they would feel especially unlucky and hopeless, as if they couldn't see any hope. In the very end, they would truly feel that perhaps the only viable option available to them was to leave this world themselves. But later, because they fortunately encountered the true Dharma, the profound teachings, after encountering the true Dharma, this is certainly not some kind of magic, nor is it some other method to truly change you in any way. It should be a profoundly positive and genuinely correct approach to improve oneself. Following this, I sincerely hope that you all can use the authentic teachings of the Middle Way to repair yourselves. This is practicing and cultivating through the profound Vajra mind. And then, from a secular perspective, I was deeply thinking, when it comes to complex things like clinical depression or the spectrum of autism, the vast majority of the underlying causes often come from one's own profound self-concept and the persistent attachments that people have. As for the issues brought about by these persistent attachments, observing the inherent impermanence of things more often can also prove to be a beneficial solution. This is because, from what I have personally seen in the symptoms of many different illnesses and health conditions, everyone tends to feel that nothing in this world ever changes. For example, he thinks, my family is doing just fine. Why did such a very sudden and unexpected change happen? Isn't it often said that after his father passed away, he developed a significant and debilitating depression? Or after he got divorced, his entire mindset underwent a profound and lasting change? Or he used to be very successful and highly accomplished at work, but then his company unfortunately went completely bankrupt and ceased operations. And from then on, he became depressed and didn't dare to face others, and so on. In fact, these people haven't cultivated an understanding of impermanence. If one has truly understood impermanence, then in our lives there are definitely many, many things, whether it's your status, your reputation, your talent, your appearance, or your entire family situation. They are all constantly changing, always in flux. Moment by moment, instant by instant, day by day, month by month, year by year. Everything in our lives is constantly changing day after day without fail. People change, things change, and objects change as well. Everything is constantly changing and evolving, always in a state of flux. All things in the world are in a very unstable, fragile state like this. So within the broader scope of your own life, when you happen to notice certain small changes, you'll quite naturally begin to think, wow, the Buddha already said that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, that everything in the world is impermanent. So my small family, my personal relationships, and my small intimate social circle, which is quite important to me and something I truly value. It's completely normal for such changes to happen. We Tibetans have a singer who said some time ago, he often says this phrase, because he used to be an extremely famous singer, but then later on, It seems he unfortunately lost his voice or something, and suddenly his widespread popularity significantly dropped. Some other celebrities also experienced this kind of challenging situation too, right? He used to be incredibly popular throughout Tibet, but then all of a sudden, it was almost like suddenly no one really cared about him anymore. Because if he can't actually produce the notes with his own natural voice, people can be very realistic. When people need him, everyone is probably very happy about it. But once they don't need him anymore, everyone will abandon him. And sometimes others would say to him, "Oh, you used to be so famous. What happened to you now?" He'd say, it's nothing, it's nothing. Even planes crash. So what need is there to even mention me? He often tells others, even airplanes can crash. And actually, that's true. Sometimes this impermanence of ours. If even airplanes flying at 10,000 meters high can fall, then how much more so with things in our lives? Like fame, status, and wealth. All of these are things that can change very easily. With this mindset, we won't get stuck in knots inside. We won't get tangled up in knots, and gradually, we'll come to see that so many aspects and things in this world are constantly evolving and changing. I'm the same way. My body is also changing. That's really how I personally see it myself. Today, my body feels a bit better, and my mood is okay. But if my body isn't feeling well today, will my mood be truly bad? Sometimes it's because of physical reasons. Maybe I feel a bit uncomfortable. But in principle, I can completely and entirely accept it. It's normal for things to be good yesterday and not so good today. A lot of people, when things aren't going well for them today, that's just normal. Look at the current presidents of Western countries now, for instance, and observe their circumstances. If their real approval rating is 70 or 80%, people say, that's pretty good, not bad at all. So among us ordinary people, where can you find 100% approval from everyone? So within any given group, even in our dedicated Buddhist study group, we can observe this phenomenon. There are people who oppose me and others who also oppose me, and many people can't accept it. But if most people can accept it, then we still have some room for votes, so to speak. So sometimes, if we have some understanding of society as a whole, we should actually feel quite relaxed and at peace within our hearts. So this profound understanding is somewhat deeply related to the contemplation of the inherent impermanence of all phenomena. Therefore, I think just a moment ago we extensively talked about the contemplation of profound compassion, which is a crucial aspect, and also the Vajra mind or the wisdom of emptiness contemplation. These are very important. And then there's also the profound contemplation of impermanence. With the contemplation of impermanence, our minds can truly begin to settle down. Whatever happens to us in the future, whatever challenges or changes may arise, we should be able to remain strong in our hearts. This is very important. And another thing, many people, including some truly great masters from abroad, have also expressed similar sentiments and observations. Many great masters believe that nowadays, perhaps in our country, significant issues like depression and autism are perhaps not discussed that much. However, in Western countries, even as early as 20 years ago, when we went to the United States in 1993, they were already paying a lot of attention to these issues. At that time, in many Asian countries, there might not have been much concern about this area. So in this case, many great masters in the West believe that what is called depression and such is caused by negative karma from past lives. Therefore, by reciting the Vajrasattva mantra and the 100-syllable mantra, and truly repenting in this profound way, after sincerely repenting, because some of the accumulated karmic forces from past lives are effectively purified, one's mental state in this current life can recover very quickly and completely. So they are encouraged to recite the 100-syllable mantra and to chant some Vajrasattva mantras. This particular kind of method is also proving to be very effective. I've heard that many people who used to suffer from severe depression, but later, after diligently practicing preliminary practices and reciting the profoundly powerful 100-syllable mantra, then gradually and steadily, little by little, they were indeed able to purify a significant amount of accumulated negative karma. After successfully achieving that, their lives can now completely return to a state of normalcy and peace. Therefore, through some profound Buddhist teachings, we come to understand that certain fundamental aspects of our lives in this very existence are actually not as we initially imagine them to be. There are intricate causes and specific conditions that meticulously shape and influence them. For example, if I'm in a bad mood today, it could very well be because someone said something about me. So that's why I've been in a bad mood these past couple of days. But it's also very possible that all the physical and emotional discomfort I've been experiencing lately is related to something from this life or even a previous life, and that I have a certain particular connection with some specific cause or condition. So for things like this that cannot be readily seen or physically touched, it becomes a matter of understanding and even can't be detected in hospitals. when it comes to these psychological issues. I believe that through religion, especially the profound and transformative practice of confession in Buddhism and other deeply related and beneficial methods, there is a very strong and undeniable connection. So I also recommend that everyone consider and actively utilize confession as a powerful and beneficial way to eliminate the various karmic obstacles that may reside within the depths of your own mind, to profoundly clarify the inherent and true nature of your consciousness, and then, in accordance with your lifestyle, you can consistently practice this spiritual discipline. So this is one highly effective and accessible method. And there's another one. When I was in Europe and America, I especially emphasized to everyone the profound and sacred heart mantra of Akshobhya Buddha. Why is that precisely? I have two very important reasons. The first reason, in the past, my personal mental state was consistently unstable. I've talked about this at a school before. At first, I really, truly wanted to be a herder who was especially good at raising yaks, a herder, because there was a herder next door to us, and I really wanted to become someone like him. But later on, after I went to school and started studying, there was a very famous doctor in the village at that time, and I really wanted to become that person. Later, when I attended the teacher's college, there was a teacher, and I really wanted to be a teacher like that. So throughout my own process of growing up, sometimes I wanted to be an excellent herder. Sometimes I wanted to be a doctor, sometimes a teacher. Later on, maybe it had something to do with my education and environment, and also with the people I saw at the time. But maybe it was also my own mindset. I also realized that I was especially unsettled. The friends I made, the people I interacted with, all said that I was emotionally unstable. Later, I encountered some mantras of Akshobhya Buddha, right when I had just become a monk. After I encountered them, on the one hand, I personally developed a great deal of faith within myself, but even more importantly, because many of the significant mental illnesses that people experience nowadays, to be honest, are also somewhat related to the 8 classes of Devas and Nagas. They genuinely possess this remarkable and unique ability to manipulate certain intricate aspects of the human mind. On that particular day, many people said the famous movie named The Mermaid. A lot of people said it was very good. Out of curiosity, I specifically went to watch this movie. But the main theme in it is also about environmental protection. However, what it really captures is something that others might not have noticed: the relationship between dragons and humans. Indeed, we can put it this way then: sometimes when the 8 classes of Devas and Nagas, these invisible beings, are displeased, they naturally bring forth various devastating diseases and widespread plagues to humanity, including all manner of ongoing conflicts and wars, and furthermore, they possess the formidable ability to trigger catastrophic tsunamis and powerful earthquakes. Although this profound understanding is rooted in a specific Buddhist perspective, other religions also say similar things. In many other ancient cultural legends and civilizations, there are similar narratives and beliefs. There are also such records and explanations. So we can't completely... It's a kind of common superstition. It's a particular way of saying things. So nowadays, some people, including some actors and even some prominent directors, often use dreams and other similar forms, relate the Devas and Nagas as well as the Yaksas to the living conditions of humans. And when this is combined with the relationship to humans, we humans will also reflect on it further. Although their primary intention is not to actively promote any specific religion, sometimes it just naturally happens to coincide with religious themes or practices. In such cases, I have previously mentioned the pervasive depression and various other debilitating symptoms that manifest within people's minds, the deep sense of self-despair, or this unsettling melancholy that you might feel. All of these psychological afflictions come from what is known as dragon sickness. So in the practice of Akshobhya Buddha, in the sacred ritual composed by the Venerable Mipham Rinpoche, a highly revered master, the unease in people's hearts caused by Devas and Nagas can also be resolved through the diligent recitation of this powerful mantra. So after I myself personally encountered and deeply engaged with this specific and transformative Dharma practice, it seemed that I personally feel that my temperament is relatively stable and quite consistent. You see, I've been diligently teaching and giving Dharma talks here in the Han region ever since 1987, and it has already been a full 30 years now. The other day I was joking with some Khenpos that my temperament is still quite stable. Otherwise, for someone to do the same work for 30 years, maybe, well, it actually does happen sometimes in real life. I saw in yesterday's news that there was a person who has been making meatballs for 30 or 40 years, crafting them every single day with dedication. There are also such people in traditional Chinese medicine. They do exist. But I personally feel that starting from that time, whether it was doing translation or giving Dharma talks, my devoted faith in relying on my teacher has not changed, remaining consistently stable and unwavering, and in many other significant aspects of my life as well. I also maintain a pretty normal and grounded mindset. So as a result, once upon a time when I was attending a school in the United Kingdom, originally they had asked me to teach a different class. But before that class, many of their dedicated and experienced teachers kept discussing many issues related to depression. As a result, the class I had planned to teach was not delivered. I said, today, I have specially and carefully prepared to recite this transmission for everyone present. Originally, this school is a very prestigious and highly respected institution, so it would have been better to give a more academic lecture. That might have been more appropriate. But later I thought, no matter what school it is, no matter what, sentient beings are truly pitiable. As for the reputation of this school, I don't have any attachment to it. I thought, even if there weren't many people here, I can't remember if there were a lot of people at the time, but I just recited it. As for the class that their school originally requested, I didn't continue with it. I saw that before and after the class, there were many experts and many students, especially at that time. Maybe it was related to the local climate, and the weather there indeed had something to do with it. Then they brought it up to me, and later I wondered if I myself might have this kind of condition. If I did have it, I was sure that reciting this kind of mantra should be no problem. Later I passed on this mantra. So today as well, I am forming a deep and meaningful connection with everyone through the powerful vibrations of this sacred mantra. I sincerely hope that in the future, through the continued practice of this mantra, as I mentioned earlier, one of the primary intentions is to contemplate and cultivate boundless compassion, and also to contemplate emptiness and impermanence. Then through some powerful mantras like the sacred Vajrasattva mantra, the Institute will hold a Dharma assembly after some time. I especially hope that each of you from now on will recite it 400,000 times. Actually, reciting it 400,000 times is quite easy. I myself have been diligently reciting it every year. So if you recite the Vajrasattva mantra 400,000 times, through the mantra, one's mind can be completely purified. After reciting the mantra, it acts as an invisible soothing massage. This is truly called moving meditation. So as long as you recite the mantra, your mind will feel very comfortable. Originally, you might have been about to argue, or there might have been things that would lead to a fight. But then you think, oh well, forget it, I won't argue. I want to recite Om Bandhar Sadha, Om Bandhar Sadha. If you recite it for 10 minutes, you won't feel like arguing anymore, let alone fighting. So sometimes, as I just mentioned, the practice of reciting sacred mantras can profoundly help you to deeply relax your mind and achieve a state of inner peace. Subsequently, all kinds of physical and mental illnesses can be effectively dispelled and alleviated. And there's another method. Today, I will also share the Heart Mantra of Akshobhya Buddha here, and I will transmit it to everyone in a moment. This is very important. Also, there are a lot of people participating today. So I especially and sincerely hope that each of us can truly study the Dharma diligently and with great care every single day. Right now, there are still very few people who seriously study the Dharma systematically in a thorough way. This is the case in China and actually also in the United States as well. Every 8th and 15th day of the lunar month, there are huge crowds burning incense and worshipping the Buddha, but many of them are quite superstitious. They don't truly understand the teachings of Buddhism. So I especially hope that everyone can truly use the internet and some Dharma texts and other related resources to genuinely study the Dharma. Studying the Dharma also takes some time. It's not that you just read the Diamond Sutra today and then read the Heart Sutra tomorrow and that's enough. Oh, I believe in Buddhism now. That's it. It's not like that. We should definitely say that within a certain well-defined scope, if we truly put in genuine and sincere effort, it's not really about how Buddhism is this or that particular thing. Sometimes I myself don't even think I'm a Buddhist. I don't think in that particular way. As long as Buddhism truly aligns with the fundamental truths of this world, then we are all Buddhists, all seekers of truth. If the principles of Buddhism do not simply align with the truths of the world, even though I am a Buddhist, I would not acknowledge Buddhism. I can put it this way. So, we genuinely hope that through a truly positive and encouraging approach, everyone can systematically study, comprehend, and deeply understand the profound Dharma. Otherwise, there are now many different representations that are not truly Buddhist in their essence. This includes some Dharma teachers and lamas among those who teach. There are indeed some who are particularly worrisome. This is primarily because they are unable to accurately represent authentic Buddhism. However, due to the specific actions and behaviors of certain individuals, people end up misunderstanding certain practices and teachings of our Buddhist tradition. After this happens, everyone really should have the necessary wisdom to clearly and carefully discern and wisely make their own important choices. This is very important. So, after some time has passed, likely within the period between May 2nd and May 10th, I am planning to give a series of 6 comprehensive lectures on the profound teachings of the Medicine Buddha Sutra. The primary purpose of teaching the Medicine Buddha Sutra is, on one hand, because many people in the world today suffer from all kinds of illnesses. They also really hope to receive the blessings of the Medicine Buddha so that everyone can truly be healthy and well. Nowadays, people are paying very special attention to their overall health and general wellness. Of course, you can always go for a refreshing run or utilize various types of fitness equipment, or even consider taking beneficial ginseng or perhaps cordyceps. These are also external methods of maintaining health. But I believe that internal health maintenance is even more important. Many people, when I was sick, brought me all sorts of things to eat, but I didn't actually eat much of them. I primarily relied on various mantras and a number of other effective methods. Between external and internal health cultivation, I mainly focus on internal cultivation. So I also sincerely hope that many people will recite the Medicine Buddha's mantra. At that time, we might have 1 to 2 hours of teaching each day. But in the middle, if some people are not entirely familiar with the recitations that occur both before and after, they can simply focus on listening to the main part in the middle, which typically lasts for about an hour or so. Might be of great help to your present and future lives. It could be extremely and profoundly beneficial. You will then be able to clearly see for yourselves. If you hear the sacred name of each and every Buddha in your ear and truly listen, the merit is immense. That's why many people ask me to recite sutras. If someone is about to pass away today, I first recite the names of the 7 medicine Buddhas. Perhaps when you hear me performing a transference ritual for someone, on one hand, I recite the Phawa ritual of Amitabha Buddha for the transference of consciousness. But there is something even much more important than that. I carefully recite the sacred names of the 7 medicine Buddhas directly by the ear of the deceased individual. Subsequently, when I proceed to perform life release ceremonies and rituals, in the life release ritual I composed before, the 7 medicine Buddhas are also the primary and central focus of this discussion. Therefore, it is very important. Of course, whether you choose to attend or not, whether you decide to listen attentively or not, it genuinely makes absolutely no discernible difference whatsoever to me personally. Now, I do not seek any personal fame, nor do I seek any material wealth. What exactly do I seek then? I especially and truly hope that each and every one of you will have a healthy mind and a healthy body. And if your body is healthy but your mind is not, it is very painful. If your mind is healthy, even if your body is not very healthy, it shouldn't be a big problem. I've seen people with especially healthy minds, practitioners, whose bodies often require medication and injections, but they are always very happy in any situation. The way they truly interact with the people around them and the world is also very harmonious and visually appealing, creating a pleasant and balanced aesthetic. So tonight, my lecture in Chinese will finally come to a complete and thorough end here for this evening. Next, I will recite the ritual and transmission of Akshobhya Buddha. I will recite it once for everyone. This will truly and officially count as our very first class for today indeed. Earlier in this presentation, I mentioned that I might continue speaking until approximately 7:40 p.m. If we strictly adhere to the previously established schedule and timeline, it indicates that there are still a full 2 minutes. Some people are saying that it is indeed very accurate, but I personally don't really know if it is truly accurate or not, to be honest. This book is quite interesting. When I had just become a monk, there was someone named Khenpo Sodargye, who has already passed away many years ago. He gave this to me at that time. The Dharma texts I used to carefully keep and preserved. This particular one has been with me for over 30 long years. I actually got it back when I had just become a young monk. So I recite a little bit of it myself every single day.
Moyovi Joptapna Tiapsim Shirtar Mujana Tombangan Le Panya de Zistan Moyom Gumbum Tank Chowurk Cheri Raja Yombe Jagbanzan Tachut Cherzo Jaoyon Pipsig Ju Yishi Mepon Barbi Winyet Na Gargi Nyamdan Tukur Nimir Tan Honlar Nadim Chang Kura Le Gonchu Tonshi Shinlo Mujo de Zandra Maha Rokana Hompat Zandra Maha Rokana Hompat Zantra Maha Rokana Hongpat.
If you don't really truly understand the ritual, you can recite this very mantra. If you recite this mantra often enough, then
Zantra Maha Rokana Hongpat. Zantra Maha Rokana Hongpat. Zantra Maha Rokana Hongpat. Zantra Maha Rokana Hongpat. Zongji Yarpo Yike Japan the Langsi Jope Zanwanga La Lo Nojan Lasoba Kan Jeveran.
If you recite this powerful mantra here, many worldly harms and obstacles from gods, nagas, yakshas, and so on will disappear. You will also be truly liberated from all various plagues and diseases of life. After reciting this, a sacred prayer, even grave karmic offenses like the 5 uninterrupted karmas can be purified. Also, magnetizing activities are more easily accomplished. It dispels certain obstacles caused by demons. So, in this degenerate age, we need to take care of our health externally, such as consistently wearing protective masks when we go out and diligently making sure our clothing adequately protects us from the biting wind. These are essential things we should do. But internally, we can also recite some mantras, contemplate emptiness and impermanence. In this way, both the inside and the outside are very well protected. Otherwise, if we only wear a mask on our skin's surface, it would not be sufficiently effective. If there are various invisible and unseen harms that might enter, it will be very difficult to effectively treat them when the time comes. This was composed by the omniscient Mifem Rinpoche. Today, due to a particularly auspicious and fortunate circumstance, I am offering everyone this incredibly convenient and highly effective method. So now, we will have about a 20-minute break. After these 20 minutes, I will recite a Tibetan transmission of The Path to Liberation. Following that, I will use pure Tibetan to communicate with you all, some of our dear Tibetan compatriots who may be present here today. As a Tibetan myself, I believe I should also speak in pure Tibetan as is customary. Some of them indeed necessitate a certain level of communication and interaction between us. Therefore, precisely at 9 o'clock, I will diligently and accurately recite the complete lineage for everyone present, ensuring it is delivered right on time. After the lineage recitation, if you feel you don't understand or have any concerns, tomorrow, we don't have work tomorrow, right? If there's no work tomorrow, then anything is perfectly fine. If you want to watch something else while listening, that's completely okay too. This isn't really a formal class here anyway. So you can do whatever you like, all right? Not having to work tomorrow is also a good thing, right? Let's do a very simple and brief dedication for this very first session just now.
Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye